Taryn from Elegant Upgrades, and if you've been following along with me, I flip furniture so that I can buy a house. So I'm working on a down payment. So this is the piece I have staged up today and ready to go. It is just a lovely, lovely little thing. I've had it sitting in storage for a while because it did require a lot of work. There was a ton of water damage to it, but got her all cleaned up nice, and we did some awesome things. So some stamping on the front. You know, I added some of my decoupage papers to the inside because, you know, I just love decoupage. Appliques on the front, and revamped the hardware. So if you'd like to see how to get this look, and yeah, just keep watching. We'll see what happens. This is what happens. Right, so here's what we have today. It's a lovely, lovely buffet. However, it does have a bit of issues, namely with the top. I was told that the previous owners had a fish tank or something of the like on top of it, and so there's quite a bit of water damage, and there's a big chunk taken out of there. I'm not sure if I'll be able to keep the top wood, which is a little disheartening, but we'll make it beautiful. So yeah, some more stuff back here. The back's off. We're gonna have to check out the structure of it. It's actually pretty sturdy considering. A little bit dirty on the inside, but that's no big deal. I'm gonna see, the doors are all actually in great repair, just some damage to the finish, again, from water here. I'm gonna see what it's gonna take to get this felt out. It looks like it's coming up pretty easily, so that would be awesome, because I don't really want dirty old felt in there. And this right here, oh, that's hard to see because it's shadowed. I think we're missing a part of a board for another shelf. I could leave it as a half shelf. I'm not sure exactly. But yeah, so has all the original hardware with the exception of the back plate here, but I can cast this and, or I can mold this and then cast it for the additional parts, but I'm not sure if I need it on the drawers or I'm kind of just fine with them how they are. I don't know, we'll see. And then this drawer is gonna need to be waxed. I was using it for storage, obviously. Yeah, this felt, I don't know, I just felt it's so gross. Yeah, anyways, this is what we're doing. I'm going to give it a sand on the top. It's actually not a shiny piece, so I don't have to worry about too much around anywhere else, but we are going to give it a scuff sand. I'm going to sand the top down completely to get rid of this. I got to put some, probably, we're going to have to go TSP this time because this piece is kind of icky and I don't want any living things on it. And then, wow, this is long-winded, I'm sorry. We're probably going to do some appliques on this, or the doors or something. We're going to make it fancy, don't worry. Let's hop to it. So I did the entire piece with my random orbit sander, just smooth it out. But I just wanted to show you this cool little toy that I have. It's my Ryobi multi-tool, and you can exchange that out for a very small triangle shaped sander. And oh my goodness, it is so awesome for tiny spaces. So then I went over, I primed the entire piece with my Ben primer. I did this not so much to block any stains or for adhesion because I didn't need it for either of those. What I did need it for was to fill in all the dryness in the wood and give me a smoother surface to work on top of. So that was the goal with this. I actually did about 3 coats of this primer to get it set in, and in between every coat I did sand so that it could sink into like any nicks that were in it, just everything. And then I went through, and good grief, this was just dreadful, but I took out all of the lining in this and inside the cabinet. I didn't film inside the cabinet because it was way easier than the drawer, but they had this stapled and glued in. I used a screwdriver to pull out the staples, and then I used a scraper to get off any extra glue, all that. And I just kind of, I mean, you know, you got to work through these things. So I did end up using my paint scraper, which I absolutely love for taking off old finish, but I used it to take off the glue. Now, if you're going to do something like this, which I totally recommend, just do it gently and carefully because you can damage wood. This thing is super, super sharp, super awesome, but very sharp, and you can gouge. So just be careful on that. And then here I'm going to be applying some appliques. You guys have seen me do appliques before. I will say this time I didn't record because I tried it with hot glue and it was my first time, and I don't want to teach anybody something wrong, but I probably would never do hot glue again. It just, to me, it wasn't worth it. So I'd probably go back to either my clay or my resin. Those are the two that I typically use. I would just do those. The clay is much faster because you can, fill it out and then tip it out of your mold and then create another one quickly. Resin takes time because you have to let it set up in the mold before you can remove it and then do it again if you're casting multiple of the same pieces, but either one of those are awesome. So here I'm just taking some caulk. I noticed there was just a slightly larger gap than I would like in this back seam here that wasn't getting filled in with the primer, so anywhere there's just something that I wasn't a huge fan of, I filled with caulk. And it's paintable, so this is after the first coat of primer, so it'll get primed over as well, and you can't see any of it. So now I'm just removing, to keep the molds in place, I just taped them and clamped them to make sure that they were sticking on. That's another thing too, the hot glue never like hardens up, so it's always kind of flexible, and I didn't want it to come off the piece, so that's why we taped it and clamped it. And then I'm going over it also with primer because I want them all to have the same surface while I'm painting. And then as you can see, I'm taking a chip brush here for the molds because I want to make sure that I can get in and around all the edges. But those brushes do leave brush strokes, so I'm going over anywhere that I can after the brush and rolling it out with my roller. Then I'm taking a sanding block here because those legs are very ornate and I can't sand them with my regular sander. One day I would like a surf prep, but that's like $1 billion and I need a house, as you guys know. So then I'm taking my chalk mountain cleaner. Oh my gosh, you guys, this stuff smells so delightful. It's like wintergreen, but like not an overwhelming, like an actual wintergreen forest. So nice. So I'm actually mixing stains here. That's my Kona, and then I'm mixing it with the gray to kind of tone it down and cool it down at the same time. So I loved the color that it turned into. It was just still dark and rich, but not as dark as Kona typically is. So I'm just staining the drawer, and then I'll do the legs, so that way we're getting our wood that's still on here tied together, because you saw at the top in the beginning there was no way I could save that, so I wanted to keep wood as much as I could where I could. Now I'm taking Mellow White. This is obviously a Chalk Mountain product. You guys know I love them. They're just awesome. So Mellow White is going all over the entire piece. And then when I'm doing tops like this where they're larger surfaces, I try and get a lot of the product on at first, and then at the end, quickly, you have to work so fast. You then do the long strokes to smooth it out. And of course, sanding between each coat. This isn't like a crazy sanding. This is just making sure everything is getting smooth. And then for my second coat, I do tend to use a bit of water, so you can see me use my Mr. bottle. It's because it makes your coat go on so much more smooth. It's just awesome. So here I'm taking some deep water blue, and this is kind of going to be the accent color. It's not going everywhere. It's just getting blended in around the edges to just, add a little something, something. So I've got 3 brushes here because I'm using white into a different color, and I don't like to mess up my white. I'm usually fine with my colors getting a little contaminated, but white's not one of them. So I've got my white brush, my blue brush, and then also kind of an extra blending brush that I can blend between the 2 colors to prevent my white from getting too muddied. So as you can see, I'm adding the blue down around the bottom, and then I want it to get inside the details of the appliques. So I'm taking my brush and like scrubbing it in there every which way. Guys, don't be afraid to look like kind of at it from every different angle. Look from the bottom, look up, everywhere, because you will notice you missed a spot and it will just grate your nerves later on if you don't handle it. So I just make sure I get it all in there, and then I blend it out just like we did on the top, very gently into the white. The white's still a little bit wet, so it's really easy to blend that way. And then as you can see, I'll clean up the blue that gets faded out too much into white to keep it really crisp white on top. I just said white a lot just then. And then what I also do is on top of the appliques, I did a little bit of dry brushing with more white to help those have more dimension as well. So those have blue all over them and then set back in the recesses, and then I take a little bit of white and dust them over the top. Little dry brush action. You guys know this is just back and forth until you like what you've got. You just kind of keep working at it until when you see it, it makes you happy. And don't be afraid to just spray water. If it starts drying out, you need more water, and that's fine. You can just keep adding it. And another sand, of course. And now, so this is a cool trick. This is my satin poly from Chalk Mountain. I start with a damp brush. I'm going to seal the whole thing with one coat of this, because we're going to do something a little extra next. And if you have this layer of protection, if you make a mistake on your next decorative finish, you can wipe it off and you're not risking anything. So if you seal your piece in between each step where you think you could potentially make a mistake, it will save you just a lot of heartache. So here I'm using the same blue. It's watered down just a little bit to thin it out, and then I'm using my brayer as kind of like a little rolling pin to get the paint on these awesome IOD rose toile stamps. So I just started playing with these things and I just love them. They give kind of like a vintagey look, kind of already distressed coming off the stamp. They're just really fun and really cool. And you place them however you like. You can make a multitude of patterns or have it not be patterned at all. But so since we put the poly on there first, any mistakes that I get or any parts that I don't like, I can actually wipe back with a baby wipe, which is just super fun. And then I can seal again. So now my top is protected. It already has 2 coats of poly on there and everything looks great. So the drawer had some, you saw the stuff coming out. The glue really took off a lot of the finish. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking my stain markers. Guys, I got these at the dollar store. How cool is that? So I've got several colors. I just kind of try and find one that matches the best, and you can kind of mix them too. So if you get one that's too light or too dark, you can kind of go back and forth and kind of mix and match colors. So they're just really cool things, super easy to use, very inexpensive. And then once you get the wax on, because I did wax all of these drawers, and I did the exact same process on the inside of the cabinet, which again I didn't film because the drawer was the most damaged. So okay, this is a little applicator pad from Chalk Mountain. That thing is awesome, so good. Oh, I sealed it with hemp wax, and now I'm using their antique wax again with that applicator pad. And then as I go over the appliques, I'm using the wax brush to get inside all the details so that the dark wax will sit back in there. And then I'll use the applicator sponge to wipe on and kind of buff in the rest of the color, because I thought the white was just a little bit too white. So I feel like it's just not one of my videos without decoupage. So of course I'm doing the inside of my doors with these awesome bird prints. And you guys have seen this a million times. I have other videos of it, but I just use their satin poly, get on my decoupage paper, whatever I'm using. This is just a tissue paper kind. You lay down the poly, put the paper over it. You can use a brayer if you want a smoother finish, and then you seal it with another round of poly. Then this is just a sanding sponge. That's how I get it off the edge. Run your sandpaper along the edge of it and it creates a perfect line. So you can see at the bottom there, I kind of tore a little bit. You just stick it back on. I stuck it back on, let it sit for a minute, and then I can clean up the edge again and you can't tell. So this is a super easy and fun way to like add something extra to your piece. I also added some papers to the drawer sides just to fancy those up as well. And then the inside wood, I added some of the dark antiquing wax just to kind of deepen up the wood and richen it out. But this is the finished result. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thanks so much for following along. I hope that you like, subscribe, all that jazz, and I'll see you next week.